Shukran, Cooks.
Being the last speaker and trying to follow these excellent previous presentations, and I'm going to cut quite a bit so I can avoid saying what's already been said better than I would have done. Just let me begin by saying there are a couple of distinguishing features about Daesh which I think are obvious, but bear repeating, that distinguish it from other terrorist threats that we have faced. One key feature, as we all know, is that thousands of our own citizens from all the countries represented here are renouncing the values of their own societies, nations, and religions and joining Daesh. That leads to a related feature, that there is a connection between events abroad and a direct threat at home, which usually only happens in proper wartime, if you like. So here our own nations are not threatened by enemy bombers and fighters in the skies, but enemy fighters and bombers of a completely different kind on the streets. And that makes it incredibly difficult and incredibly urgent that we deal with this. There's another real paradox. We've got millions of people seeking refuge in the West, while thousands who grew up in the West would like to destroy exactly what is attracting those millions. This just indicates how incredibly complex the problems are that we face, because its roots are not just complicated, but even contradictory. There are some people who are driven to Daesh because they feel alienated, downtrodden, economically deprived, and victims of injustice and unjust societies. Now, those feelings, I suppose, are easy to understand in countries which are appallingly governed. But actually, we see people being attracted to Daesh from countries where governance is actually quite good. Even though there is deprivation, alienation, and poverty on a different scale, we see those grievances being inflated and Daesh offering to those people adventure, an ideology, material privileges, and empowerment. And we haven't got a good handle on how to deal with that attraction, which we don't understand, I think, most of us. In any event, the problem, as has been said, is multifaceted, and so must be the solutions. Military, political, diplomatic, economic, legal, social, ideological, educational, and theological. They also have to be international, and they're going to have to involve any number of international organizations. And there aren't any quick fixes. I'm by nature an optimist, but I can't see a quick fix here. Let me use the disease analogy. This isn't a disease which can be fixed with a surgical intervention. That's the type of disease that if you're going to have a disease, you want. Nope. This is one of those diseases that, yes, it might require some surgery, but it's also going to be a lifetime of pills, a change in diet, no smoking, no drinking, more exercise, less stress, complete change in lifestyle. And even then, you don't get a cure, you get a way of making it possible to live with the condition. Indeed, this could be a struggle for decades. UK Prime Minister David Cameron has called it a generational struggle. Now, I don't want to sound too pessimistic, because the UK is one example of a country which actually went through decades living with a very substantial terrorist threat. And it did change lifestyles. I remember growing up in that type of environment. It can be done, and many of our nations, many of your nations do that. And there's light at the end of the tunnel. Look at what's happened with Al-Qaeda, where efforts have hugely eroded its capacities over the course of a decade and a half. So what does our long-term lifestyle change look like? Well, we've heard a lot of it already. It's got to be multifaceted. We've got to combine the best elements of hard power and soft power. We've got to combine foreign and domestic policies. Our nations and our international organizations need to work militarily in coalitions against Daesh. We need to work together internationally on the military strategy to deny Daesh its goals in the Middle East. That, by the way, might well mean working with Russia. It's a question of self-interest. I mean, Russia isn't traditionally good at compartmentalizing issues, but I think there is hope that we could work together in that area where there's genuinely common interest. Though I would stress that that doesn't mean that we should change positions on anything else. Just put that in a box and deal with it. It means degrading and defeating Daesh in its strongholds, and at the same time, eroding Daesh's local and regional support by promoting good governance. Bad governance gives Daesh a political foothold, and it generates a whole series of other miseries as well. If your choice as a Syrian Sunni is life under Assad or life under Daesh, that is not a great choice. The desire to escape is wholly understandable, and people face similar, though perhaps less stark, choices elsewhere. The EU and NATO, I would stress, should work on their partnerships as a key priority to build capacity and good governance in the Middle East and North Africa. And that's not the only area where they need to work. And in fact, this has already been said, we do need to improve cooperation on intelligence, information sharing, and policing. We also need to work together on resilience, the protection of our societies and our infrastructure. And there too, it's something which NATO and the EU need to work together on. We also need to look at the shortcomings in our own societies. Why can Daesh recruit so successfully, even within Europe? What are we doing wrong? How do we prevent radicalization, and how do we implement de-radicalization? And we did hear some stuff earlier which was very encouraging. And I would stress here, we need actually to do more research in this, we need to work on it together, and we need to develop and share best practices. It's a new, very important challenge we need to get together on and do it. And it's tough. Arguing with ideologues is tough. And it doesn't matter whether you're arguing with a political bigot, a racist bigot, or a religious bigot. Bigots are largely immune to reason and logic. You've got to develop society-based solutions, peer pressure, confrontation with victims, humanization of the targets of bigotry. And prevention is better than cure. You've got to look at education. You've got to educate people not about a specific type of bigotry, but just bigotry in general. Teach them about reason, tolerance, and humanity. And we've got to do a better job of defending and teaching our values. Let me finish by citing 3 conclusions from actually an article by a BBC correspondent. Security services need to be at the top of their game. European societies need to be better integrated. Countries in the Middle East need to be better able to serve the needs of all their citizens. And I will add, there is a need for the members of NATO and the EU, the nations who are members of those countries, to get those 2 organizations working together on developing and implementing strategies to exploit the unique capabilities of each of those organizations. Let me finish there. Thank you.